So welcome to everybody. We will talk about beam detectors this morning, and I will try to give you an idea about the ILIA system in the different configuration you can have with some basic features, some special features we have also regarding the features that are from some of our competitor. So, okay. This is me. I am just in Cetronics since 20 years, but I am in the fire detection field since 35 and more years, so a little bit too much. But anyways, yeah, I am now work for Cetronic in the technical department, and I am the one that follow everything about certification, more or less all over the world. So first, it's what is exactly a beam detector? It's a device that uses a projected beam of light to detect smoke across large areas. Actually, this projected beam is considered for infrared beam for all the technology are on the market. In the past, you have some different technology, like, for example, the laser, but it was closed, the project, from some of our competitor because it doesn't work properly. And so we have a beam of infrared that is covering completely the area that we have to monitor. And when we have a smoke that decrease the intensity of the light signal, these can cause an alarm and give you the alarm to the control panel. The detector, the beam detector has been used since many years for industrial application mainly, but in reality now in the last years they are used in very large different kind of installation from shopping center, cinemas, and everything, also in museum or other things. When you have problem that you can fix, for example, other kinds of detector on the ceiling or something similar to resolve technical problem, and you with the beam detector you can do that. The models of beam detector you can find on the market both are in the possibility to be certificates, but with the EN 5412 or also with the ISO 724012 on whatever. It's the first that have an operating principle based on optical beam attenuation. So we have just an attenuation in percentage and could be 10%, 50%, 20%. What is that? We can put this as threshold on the detector, and when you have this kind of attenuation, you get the alarm. The second possible model is the one that is based on the attenuation, but also in the change and modulation of the infrared optical beam. And this is ILIA, that is the detector we will discuss today. Which is the difference? With the first one, when you have every kind of attenuation, you get the alarm immediately. With the second one, the modulation gives you the possibility to avoid false alarm, because when there is a starting of the attenuation, the modulation looks if really it's a fire, a smoke, something like that, and not other. I mean that with this kind of models, you from the first side of starting fires, you have around between, depending from the model and from the setting, but from 10 to 50 seconds to get the real alarm, because the modulation of the detector make the check about what exactly is happening in the area you have to protect. So clearly, the second model is more precise and more sure to avoid false alarm and false faults. This is the functionality of a beam detector. What is to be see is that, okay, we have the central emitted beam that you see here, but if you look, there is also a cone. So what is to understand, it is not really only a photocell, but it's a cone of infrared that will cover completely the area. For this reason, you can pass in short, also in short passage, maybe 30, 40 centimeter, but depending from the model and from the kind of installation you have, this can sometimes take you to choose the wrong threshold, as you have a part of the beam that is absorbed by the obstacle you have. So this is important. If you really want to have the best solution in detection, you have to leave at least 80 centimeter of diameter completely free. So this is the best way for a beam to work. Then you can have transmitter unit and receiver unit, so everybody is active, or a reflective, that is transmitter and receiver on one side, and on the other side you can have a reflector that gives back the emitted beam to the receiver and can eventually give you the alarm. We have the smoke absorption, as every other detector is present on the market, but with ILIA, we have also the modulation in frequency of fire. That means that if there is a starting of a fire without smoke, the detector has its own thresholds also for these, and you can start to detect before that smoke is present. So clearly, in places where this is a phenomenon that can happen, or when you have very different kinds of material that can start with smoke or without smoke in the same areas, with this kind of detector, you can cover completely that, and you can grant the security that the detection is really fast. This is the difference between that. We have the smoke only with the smoke density, amplitude modulation, that this is what we discussed before about that. And this is the smoke heat radiation that we can see. So it's clearly high false alarm immunity and reliable performance in dusty environment that you can use really everywhere, ILIA, for every kind of detection and everywhere. Sorry. So this is just a resume of what I have just said to you at the moment, and we can go further with these. What is also possible with ILIA is an extended sensitivity. So, as you see, with ILIA, you can have the minimum possible obscuration of 4.5%, that is 0.005 dB meters. So if you want just to look also on that side, that is the maximum you can have on the market at the moment. So ILIA is considered also by competitors the only with the high sensitivity present in the market. On the other side, we have with the ILIA Pro the minimum admitted by the standard sensitivity. So you can have the good sensitivity and good resistance in time, also for the maintenance, for extremely dusty areas. Take note that we can have with ILIA Pro up to 23 preset alarm threshold, and you can select the one that you will choose on the plans you have to protect. This you can do with a different kind of controller, and we will see after that. And you have also to see that you can check exactly on the side by the controller which are the disturbances in smoke with the dust or other things, and in eventually in heat, so that you can really set the perfect threshold for the environment you have to protect. Further, ILIA is the only one at the moment that has a double cone of transmission. So every ILIA has a double cone that it's also overlapping one to the other. So we don't have any model of ILIA that is self-aligning or something like that, like the competitor, because in any case, we have the maximum stability in each direction. With a double cone, we can have 1 degrees of angle of misalignment up to 200 meters. So it's clear that in any case, if you have movement of the structures or problems with misalignment and so on, we can grant a good functionality in any case. For example, if you find that there is some problem like a decrease of the transmitter's power because of misalignment or dusty and so on, if you cannot go up to clean or to make the new alignment at the moment, by the controller, you can also increase the power of the infrared transmitter manually so that you can have more time to do every kind of maintenance also in a second moment, but the detector continue to work without any problems. This is what I suggest. So the amplitude scheme, that is 1 meter for beam detector diameter with reflection and has, I said before, 80 centimeter for transmitter receiver. Why 1 meter for with the beam? With the reflection, because you have 2 times the crossing of the area. You have the transmission and the receiving back. So it's clear that the beam crossed 2 times all the area that we have to protect, and if there is some interference, some disturb, you can have these both going and going back. So why use a beam detector? Okay, to overcome some of the limitation of spot time smoke detector, extreme ceiling high, large open area, stratification, economy of scale in plants, and hazardous area. You can also note that ILIA has also an ATEX models for hazardous area when you have to protect with beam detector also this kind of plant. So this is, for example, you can see how is the detector after some months on functionality. In this is for my God, it's in chicken farm. So we have very dusty environment. You can see the dust everywhere, and also what is in front of the detector, but it continue to work. So this means that we have a very, very high resistance to the dust. If there is any problem, this is you have to signaling by the detector to the controller with a maintenance request. So this can allow you to understand that the detector is near to the limit, because ILIA has the self-compensation, but self-compensation is allowed up to 1 limit from the standards. After, you must give the full condition. So ILIA can work at the limit of that. And when you have the maintenance request, you know that the detector is still alive. If there is an alarm, we can have the priority with the alarm, so there is no any problem. But in the same time, we know that the detector is in a condition near to the border, and we have to make the maintenance of it. Well, as I told you, ILIA works with a controller. It means that we have a remote controller that is at the ground level. We can connect to this controller from 1 up to 8 detector in a loop, and or also in stub line. This depends on the kind of installation, kind of standard of every countries. The access for all the programming is controlled is protected, by a password that clearly can be changed by the customer in any case. So that is the only one that he can go into the menu to make every kind of modification. As I told you, the control of field disturbances for a calibration always correct is present both for smoke and for heat. There is the self-check of thresholds with the self-compensation up to the limit of the standard we can also make the remote test via the controller. And also, if we have a detector connected to the controller, we can make the single test for each of that test of alarm. And also, we can make the fault test by the controller, so that, for example, after the first installation, you can check if the answer one by one by the detector is correct to the control panel, sending the message of alarm or fault referred to one by one detector. Okay, manually increasing of the signal is what I have explained before. There is inside a filtering of accessories, and this can give you also help if you have problem after installation. ILIA has inside a solar filter to avoid that every direct solar filter in the receiver can give disturb. And there is an internal diaphragm. And if you have obstacles that was not in the project and so on, you can find in a second moments and so on, or other problems you can find that can disturb the detector. With the diaphragm, you can close that. It's the diaphragm like one of the cameras, so the disturb in the receiver decrease, and you can work in the best way with the detector also if you have some problem with obstacles. There is a complete directional stability over time given from the infrared cones, and also because the mechanical is very precise with a micrometric alignment in vertical, horizontal, and left and right. So you can have the security that the alignment is perfect and the movement cannot give you any kind of problem. The operating distance certified is from 10 up to 200 meters and is not given by the producer, by us, but is certified the protection rating IP65. It's clearly RoHS compliant. ILIA, the first model of ILIA has been put on the market at the beginning of 2008, and it was born with the RoHS compliant complete inside. The connection is by serial line RS485 for wires, 2 of the power supply, 2 of the line. Sorry. The 2 different controller you can find to use with ILIA is the CS RLS, that is the little one, on the CLI, that is the big one. And from there, you can also select all the possibility threshold you need. For the high immunity threshold, to avoid environmental disturb, you have the dust, frost, and pro version of the controller for both, for CS, RLS, and for CLI. This is the, okay, I've talked about the test alarm maintenance request. The automatic reset of detector after break of in infrared beams, if there is something that break the beam goes in full condition, but when this is passed by, immediately is operative without any kind of reset of other. If you have problem where there is, for example, a forklift or crane bridge or other things that give a problem of blinding the beam for 30 seconds, 1 minute, something like that, you can also set up to 90 seconds this the delay before to transmit to the control panel this fault. So it means that if you can work in every kind of installation when there is these kinds of possibilities, and you don't have 20, 100,000 of fault sent to the control panel because of the movement of this possible obstacle that give the blinding to the beam. There is also a safe tester of RS485 communication to check if on the communication line everything is good before the starting of before the starting definitively the plant. I told you about the 1 degree max at 200 meters for transmitter receiver, but with the reflection model of ILIA up to 150 meters, you have 4 degrees in each direction. So it's clear that the stability is grand in any case. The power supply is 24 volts. Something new is that now ILIA has been tested at 6 gigahertz at 30 voltmeter by VDS laboratories. And this is a new test that will become mandatory after in the second part or by the end of 2025. And we have just made the test so you can have also these features more than every other our competitor. The working temperature of ILIA that before was minus 20 plus 65 now has been tested at minus 30 plus 65. So also this is something more that you can use as basic feature in also in competition with other detectors that cannot do the same. The cable tap minimum section, if type section is 0.5 square millimeters with 4 wires. Then you can go up to 1.5, not more. Otherwise, you can have some problem in the wiring in the terminal blocks. The maximum cable length is 1,200 meters for a control unit to the last detectors, hence for every kind of RS485 line. This is just something that we can suggest. The maximum cover following area is around 1,600 square meter. In reality, we can go more with ILIA, but this is what we suggest to then clearly. Every country, every national standard can define it. And the same is for the width, that is around 15 meters. Okay, the right color, it's jet black. There is also the possibility to have the white version of ILIA, both transmitter receiver and reflection. Material is a special material, it's Noril, and is a V0 self-extinguishing. So it's also suitable for every kind of plant, exactly where there is the UL listing. And in fact, ILIA has also the UL listing also, also to have other certification. So this is what is actually, I told you about the 6 gigahertz, but we have also the renewing of EN 5412 has for EN 5412 of 2015, that is mandatory since the 2022. And then we are just working for the option we are requirement, and we are just ready with all the documentation, and everything has been sent to VDS to be ready also for this new option that can be required by test standard facilities in the next future. I told you about the minus 30, and we have renewed the certificates also for the UL version, also with new essence cooking test that it was valid also for the Canada installation. This is some example where beam detector are used, and especially ILIAs. And you can see so that we have no problem with the compensation algorithms for dust accumulation, no problem to install the detector in the trusses. In recycling plants is one of the best detector that you really can use, and is more or less used all over the world actually. This is what we discuss about the processing and covering with the transmitter receiver system. And now we go to the portfolio of the product range. PSD is not of this presentation today. Then we have the ILIA and ILIA UL. We have the ILIA Pro and the ILIA ATEX. So with this, you can really cover every kind of plant. You can see the little difference between one and the other in the angles. Clearly has the ILIA ATEX go up to 120 meters, and is plus and minus 2 and not 1 or 5 or 7 like the other for the misalignment on 100 meter. Sensitivity range is the same from ILIA Pro and ILIA ATEX. From ILIA UL, it's different with different kind of possibility to set it. These are the detector and the controller. The small controller is the CRLS. You can have the normal and the Pro controller. With the Pro controller, you have one other feature that only ILIA has at the moment, has been detector. So with one detector, you can set two different thresholds with two different output. So you can have, for example, a double consent on a line to start an extinguishing, to close some fire doors or other things directly, but being detector. And for example, just to give you an indication about the application, we have this kind of detector on the, in the Audi motorcar factory in Germany, and they control with two detectors, both with a double thresholds, the same line of production to be sure that only with a combined alarm of beam detector, you have to stop the production because there is really a fire. So there is no possibility at 99.9% of false alarm. And this you can do with the ILIA Pro. Then with the ILIA Pro, also in the little controller, you can have all the information about the kind of fault. So it's not only fault and you have the report of which detector has the fault on the display, but you have also which kind, if it has been blinding, over signal or low signal. So you can understand immediately what is happening to the detector. Also with the Pro, you can set the delay of the transmission of fault condition not only to 90 seconds, but up to 4 minutes. So also this can help in very problematic environment to solve some situation. With a CLI controller, you can do a lot of things more, and you have all the same data stored in the controller, and you can directly see there what happens and choose what to do, change the threshold, change the timing of the detector for the intervention, and everything directly by the ground. Another thing to remember is that the memory of the setting is inside the detector. So if there is a crash of the controller, you can change with a new one, just start up, make the startup, and immediately it works without any kind of new programming and nothing. As I told you, the basic configuration of the controller is for 2 beam. Then there is an expansion card that can concern a connection up to 3 and 8 detector. You can also mix the detector. I mean that if you have, for example, 6 beam detector, 3 that have to protect the production line with some dust, some problem, and the other ones are protecting the warehouse, and you will use the reflection system while in the production you have transmitter receiver, you can mix on the same controller without any problem. When you start the controller, it will recognize the kind of the detector so that you can make the dedicated programming one by one. The reset of the controller can be made directly. The reset of the alarm on the fault and everything can be do all by the keyboards of the controller or from the control panel. No problem about that. With the CLI, you can have everything clearly that is made by the little controller. It's IP65 rating also here. You have a double serial line for connection, so there is no any possibility that you will lose more of one detector if there is a cut of the line, if there is a surge circuit. Every kind of detector is protected each by each with a socket with inside a short circuit isolator certified also EN 17 by VDS. The controller of ILIA, the CLI, is the only one that you can find on the market with the EN 5418 certification. So the combination of the CLI controller with ILIA give you the maximum security with 3 different levels of check. EN 5412 for the detector, 17 for the protection of a line, 18 from the controller. You have to think that the controller has been tested also following the N54.2, that is the one for the control panel, to look if everything works in the best way. The storage of event, the log, you can read directly on site by the display, or you can download and it becomes an Excel file, and you can send also to our technical department, to the technical department of Securiton, if you have some problem to understand how to manage it and how you can solve immediately the problem. So there is no problem also for the remote check. What is also new, just from last week, is that finally, after a lot of problem, we have ended all the tests of the CLI controller in combination with XLM35. So in a short time, it will be available directly, the CLI controller with the XLM35 to the direct connection to all the control panels of sorry, of the Securiton and of the other on the other part of the group of Securiton like Hackathon and Shrek. Clearly, in the CLI, you have also the clock and the calendar. You have an internal mounting plate and the rail when you can, for example, mount inside the XLM35. The store events is very large. It's something more than 4,000 events, and with a smoke beam detector, it's really a lot. The pixel graphic display is bigger, clearly, of the one of the CRS-LS, and give you a full event description, and you can scroll it to look everything. And you can have the display of up to 5 contemporary messages. So you can really have any information directly from each single detector you connect to this kind of controller. And it's made also this with self-extinguishing material. So you have alarm, pre-alarm with different threshold settable, fault outputs, both for each single detector and also for general purpose. If for some plants I have problems to put modules inside or everything that for the line, I don't know, from problem to have interfaces and other things, I can also use the general output of alarm, pre-alarm, and fault. This message, send only these 3 messages to the control panel, and by the controller in remote, I can look exactly which is the detector that gives me this message and send this message to the control panel. There is also a general output dedicated for the reporting of the maintenance request. I talk you about the different certification. There is also Russia, the ESC from NIPO for the Russian market. There is the UL, as I told you, and we have also the other certificates that are pending, and we are doing in other part of the world. The display can be set actually with different languages: Italian, German, English, Polish, and other are in progress to be translated. Sorry. This controller is also compatible with all the ILIA models produced since May 2009. So it means that if I have a very problematic plans made in times when the CLI controller was not present with the little CSRLS, I can change Y by one without any problem, and it will work immediately to give the maximum protection and the maximum check of the plant in any case. ILIA also is actually the only beam detector on the market that has the SEAL 2 and 3 certification. These are the tables where you can just check exactly, look into which detector model you want to use with different models of controller, what you can do, which features you can have, and which cannot be eventually present. So to decide exactly which ILIA you need to protect the plants you are planning and installing. ILIA ATEX is allowed for use in hazardous area Z1, 2, 21, and 22. Has exactly the same feature of the ILIAs. What is more is that is one by one. I mean that one ILIA ATEX has one little controller and there is no possibility to expand it, but you have two different output, one for the smoke alarm and one for the fire alarm. So you can understand exactly from the beginning which is the phenomenon that is happening in the plant you are protecting. This is some kind of installation of the ILIA ATEX. Then we have also accessories. IP65 protective housing is for very, very problematic environment where, for example, there is acid in the air or something like that that can in time give problem to the detector. With this extra protection, IP65 more, you can grant a very long life of the detector. The cap you see on the front has been asked from some customer and now is in normal production since, in reality, since some years. And you can put this cap, for example, if you use ILIAs with this kind of protection in plants when there is, for example, the cleaning of the walls with a higher water pressure or with some kind of solvent inside, some acid inside for cleaning. And this is used in chemical plant or also, for example, in animals farm when there is the complete cleaning when they take off, for example, all the chicken and then they clean completely with this kind of possibility. And with this cap, you can close so that there is no any problem that some water, some other things can stay on the front of the detector. There is a clean air barrier that can be also set on this kind of protection. Protective cage, if you have to give some more protection from some something that can hurt eventually the detector. And the wall ceiling brackets with the possibility to extension from 30 up to 50 centimeter. You can fix everywhere without any problem. You can move the brackets. You can move the plate for the orientation also on every side without any problem. And there is the part, the inside part of the brackets when you can pass in with a, with a cable so that there is no any kind of possibility that there is damage of the cable making this kind of installation. Okay, so IP65 completely protected by dust and liquid, and the front is of a special coated glass. We have the internal lenses that are completely in glass, no plastic, and the front is a special kind of plastic that completely repels dust, water droplets, grease, or dirt. Is anti-reflective, so there is no any problem that you can have during the time also for using this surface for transmitting and receiving the infrared beam. You can have the full accessibility from a controller. So as I told you, is at ground level and you can make everything really from there. First installation on the scaffolding, on the platform, what is, but also with other competitors that have the self-aligning, you must go there because you have to fix them and you have to fix the reflector. And also you have to think that there is only reflection system. And this is something to think about sometimes if there is no transmitter receiver with self-aligning. But with these, after the first installation, you have the maximum stability and everything can be done by the ground. You can also make the maintenance because you can check from the ground with every kind of controller the big or the little one, the transmitter level, the receiver level, the threshold, so you can set exactly as it was at the beginning without go on without go on again to make some other modification. You can have the, as I show you before, you can set the alarm, the test alarm or the test fault also from the ground. So if it is not necessary, because there is a very, very much dusty environment that cover completely and you must clean the detector, for example, you don't have to go up in any case. You can do every check and every test from the ground. So clearly the cost of maintenance is really less than all the other systems. These are some projects made with ILIA. You can see, for example, this the Cargill soybean warehouse in Vietnam. The Bin Minh Plasco also in Vietnam. Euro Logistic Recycling in Hamburg in Germany. This is other places where there is recycling plants in Germany, in Netherlands, and in Italy. This is what I said you before. This is the example where we can show that we can work with two beams on the same line at the minimum distance without any problem, with a double check before to start extinguishing system, stop of ventilation, or in assembly line. So this is another possibility that only ILIA can give you with redundant installation. There is no any problem if you have the overlapping of the beam. They don't has been disturbed one from each other. There's another kind of installation when they use the same for the extinguishing of this area where there is the paper waste recycling plant. So some more reason to use ILIA. I have just to try to summarize, and I see that we are near to the time to close, but anyway, what I eventually you can surely have by Zach the copy of these presentations so that you can eventually go more into details. And if you have any question after this presentation, you can send directly to Zach or to your reference in Securiton so that can directly answer. And if there is something really particular, they can ask us and we will give the answer immediately to, so that you can solve any kind of problem. So here you have all some suggestion about what you can do with ILIA and which can be the problem you can find sometimes also with our competitors, so to have a better proposal for the specifier or for the customer. Okay, here you have a resume of what we have do and clear. And these are all the approvals, as I told you before, the VDS, the ATEX, the EOL, the ESC, the SEAL, and clearly, as I told you, is ROS compliant. I don't know, because you so many different countries, but HelsoCard, the complete Europe and some Asian country and some also country of South Africa and so on. I can tell you also, as regards all the production and all the material which has been constructed, ILIA and the controller is completely environment friendly. So everything is recyclable and you can use again, and there is nothing that can eventually give directly pollution. ILIA instead can save some pollution, because when we use this kind of detector with this early alarm in plants, as for example the one of the waste and recycling plants, avoid that fire goes on and give big problems for smoke that can be polluting, or also the water when you have to extinguish the fire that is in this kind of application. So if you have a really early detection with ILIA, maybe that you can avoid these because you have an immediate intervention to solve the situation before that the fire goes up to become too much. And here you have also this kind of indication. So these are a short conclusion. False alarm reduced maintenance intervals with acceptable frequency. Staff days alert and reacts skillfully to alarm signal it. Fire alarms and reacted upon in a professional manner before they can become a major fire incident. Loss prevention is maximized risk for business. Interruption is minimized, and cost for maintenance is commensurate to all the other and better. Thank you for the attention.